Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. I realize it's about, it's 6 p.m. In Warsaw right now, and it's Saturday, so at least part of you may be having a beer or a glass of wine right now, so cheers. And my presentation is going to be about why you should be negotiating your contracts and how to do this, how to start. A few words about me. I'm a commercial lawyer working with a law firm called Pniewski Zeuschner Legal. Before I joined the law firm, I have been working for international corporations as a commercial lawyer, as a contracting lawyer. And I wanted to join the good side, and now I'm here. As another interesting thing, I have, I'm sorry, just my friends are writing to me that they are watching me. Please don't do that. Well, before I started to my legal career, I actually developed a game in Unity. I implemented all of the assets myself, so I understand how the process works and what you're going through trying to find a publisher. Our game did not go out from the, let's say, a prototype phase, but it was a great experience nevertheless. But back to the presentation. So the presentation is going to be divided into two subjects, two parts. First one is going to be about general principles in contract negotiation. And the other one is going to be just a set of boilerplate, so commonly used clauses and risks associated with them, and some let's say fixes or quick fixes you can do to save yourselves from them. And yeah, so the first part is why do you even negotiate, or why should you negotiate a contract? We have all been there, including yours truly, when you have a possibility of funding in front of you, you would sell your soul to get it, and you lose your cool and you sign whatever is put in front of you. And well, this is a very huge mistake. You should be Buddha level calm while considering your contract. I know it's not easy. I know it's this is something obvious, but that's the truth. And why negotiate? I can tell you that if you are meeting new publisher, if you want to negotiate, if you want to discuss, this is going to paint you in a good light. Show that you are a professional, and it may be true in some cases. In some cases, it may not matter. The truth is much more practical, and in my view, there are two main reasons why you should be negotiating your contracts, two technical reasons. First one, and the most important one, is that the shoe probably does not fit. Which means the contract that you are given by your publisher or by a client for whom you are preparing a large set of assets, or for whom you are preparing a port of their game for another platform. The contract has not been made, in 90% of cases at least, with your product in mind. Large enterprise clients don't have the budget to prepare each contract, let's say, from scratch. What they do, because cost cutting in legal is very popular nowadays, is they are ordering one all-purpose contract from an expensive law firm somewhere in New York or in London. And this law firm makes it their life mission to put everything that may even remotely fit any remote scenario to the contract, to the agreement. So then you end up with contracts. It's very common with software houses we work with that they're ordered to deliver a software, and then they are given a contract for delivery of laptops, for example, and it is not possible for you to deliver software or deliver a game based on such a contract. You are in breach of that contract from day one. The business person that sends you that contract has no idea that's the case. They're not going to read it. They're going to download it from their intranet and just send it to you, because this is what they have been instructed to do. The other reason is that, if the contract you've been served is made by a publisher or a client, this is not going to be contract made in your favor. And again, we go back to a law firm that made this contract a few years ago. They put all and anything they could think of to get paid more for the work done to this particular contract template. And again, the person that has been providing you the contract has no idea what these words that are in there mean. They really don't care. If they have doubts, they send it to a lawyer. So you really have to read this through and consider whether, one, the contract is applicable to your situation, and two, whether it's not too onerous for you, whether you can actually perform it. Now, okay, I understand that when you're starting as a game developer, you may not exactly have the budget for a law firm or for a freelance lawyer. But you don't have to hire a lawyer to make your contract better for you. At least 50% of a publishing contract or an asset procurement contract is operational, not legal. And this means you, the developer, the operational person, are best suited to read it and to negotiate it and to suggest wordings or changes to the contract. Of course, your lawyer may word it better, but you will understand the intricacies of your company, and you alone can say whether you can commit to something or not. So if you don't have a lawyer, at least go through the operational parts and see whether there are any changes necessary in there. The best case scenario when you have a lawyer is you should both be negotiating in work and working on the contract. Unless you have an in-house counsel that knows your business through and through, then you're using a law firm or a freelance counsel. That's you're just such counsel is going to use their his or her past experience, which may not necessarily reflect your intricacies of your law firm, of your company, of your development studio, and this may be a recipe for a disaster. The bottom line is, if you hire an external lawyer to do a contract for you, don't leave them alone with this contract. You have to read it, and you have to make sure that this is all what's written in the contract is all doable from the operational perspective. All right. So, how do you even start negotiating? I understand that it may be difficult if you are a small studio and you have a large publisher on the other side to simply say, we want to change this and that, and we don't like how this and this is worded. So you don't have to do it this way. the business culture is more flexible here. You can, if you're not comfortable with suggesting certain wordings to certain clauses, you can just write an email with bullet points. We think that, for example, this and this clause is not going to work because this and that, and so on, and ask the publisher's lawyer to introduce changes for you. If the business person or whoever you're dealing with refuses, says, well, they will say things like our contracts are non-negotiable, or no one ever had any problems with our contracts. So I want you to understand that they're lying. In most cases, there is an entire machine waiting for you to suggest changes. So it goes to a consultant, then it goes to a lawyer, then it goes to finance, it goes to operations, and whatever you can think of. But of course, the first line of defense for the publisher or for a large client is to say, no, our contract is non-negotiable. When you ask again, the machine starts. If you ask twice that you want to change something and they still say you can't, then it's probably a sign that you won't be able to negotiate much. But in most cases, it won't happen. And now, finishing up the first part of my presentation, it was pointed out to me that it would be good to walk you through some basic principles of contract negotiations. So what to do not to make the other side angry. And the first thing is to always use the track changes tool. Track changes tool is available in both Google Docs and Microsoft Word, but the general rule of thumb is that for contract negotiation, you use Microsoft Word. Lawyers on the other side are almost exclusively going to use Microsoft Word. So, well, to quote Mandalorian, this is the way. And if you want to negotiate and if you want to appear professional, you have to install Microsoft Word. The other important thing is that you have to always justify your changes. Nothing makes me more angry than when I see a contract with a lot of markup on it and absolutely no justification. I simply reject these kind of changes right away. But if you describe in a comment, why do you need this change? What is going to do? What happens if you don't introduce the change? Then the person who's reviewing your changes will understand you, and in consequence, they're more likely to accept. The first issue is to always follow the naming protocol of the document. So make sure that the name is always up to date, that your name is at the end of the document as the person who last introduced some changes. Generally, if you are not, well, if this is a first contract you're negotiating or you don't really negotiate much, just see the naming protocol that's on the contract already and just go with this. The lawyer and the business person on the other side are certainly going to appreciate it. And now the last, but the most important part, feel the room and know who you are negotiating with. There are different business cultures around the world, and our, let's say, Slavic or Polish straightforward, we know everything better business culture is not the dominant one. So, for example, if you are negotiating with people from London, a few minutes of talk about the weather and holiday plans is mandatory. It's not optional. You are going to appear rude if you are not going to do the, let's say, small talk first. If you are discussing with Americans, you do the opposite. They have a lot of work. They don't want you to waste their time. So you go straight away, and you have to already be decided what you want in the contract before the conversation even starts. And these things are the let's say feeling the room and knowing your opponents is absolutely crucial. Lawyers have a lot of flexibility in what they can agree in the contract and what they can refuse. And depending on whether they like you or not, well, they may decide in your favor or against it. So this sums up the first part of the conversation, first part of the presentation, and I'm now going to take a look whether there are any questions, though I'm not sure about that given the time of the presentation. No, all right. So I'm going to resume now. Just a second. All right, so now we are going through, we will go through selected boilerplate clauses, which happens, well, they occur almost always in a contract. And, well, they're all quite dangerous. And fortunately, there are some easy ways to deal with them. So the first one is the transfer of copyrights. I'm going to give you a second to just read through the clause. So generally about copyrights and copyright transfer, this is the tool that is used to transfer the rights from one person to another. If you are producing, let's say, a set of assets, or if you are producing a port for an already existing game, you will be certainly requested to transfer your copyrights to the client or the publisher. If you are negotiating a publishing of for your deal for your game, then well, you may be able to, or you should negotiate a licensing deal. The difference between the license and the copyright transfer is that, well, if you're giving someone a license, you're just allowing them to use your game, to publish it, to distribute it, but the rights to your game stay with you. So you can, well, develop a sequel, for example. But regarding this clause, I mean, there is a lot of things wrong with them, and for some of them you will need a lawyer, but there is one that's crucial, and you can change it by yourself. And this is the moment when the copyrights are actually transferred. Here, it's upon the delivery of the product. And well, there was a funny situation with this kind of provisions with one of our software houses. They had an agreement in which they, the agreement template in which they have been transferring copyrights upon delivery of their software. And they happen to have an order from states to develop a software to power tablets in restaurants that would allow for order selection. They have developed the product, they've sent it to the client, and silence happened, total radio silence. The client did not respond. The client did not pick up any calls, and the client was using the software for about half of a year for free. Technically, they had the right to do that. So this may get even more tricky if you, for example, you're negotiating a publishing deal, because, well, once you are submitting a game to a platform like Steam or get your certification for console games, you have to state Sony or to Valve that you own all the rights to the game you're submitting. And by having this kind of clause in a contract, once you send the game to your publisher, even if they don't pay you, they can submit the game. So how to fix this? You simply change the clause so the copyrights are transferred when the deliverable, when the product is paid in full. That's it. The best case for you would be if you could have the payment even before you deliver the product, but that would be wishful thinking, and no one would accept that. But this way, you send the product, someone may review it, but they can't submit it anywhere because they don't have the rights to do that. Now, moving to acceptance clauses. These kind of clauses cause a lot of problems in practice, and many clients, have been coming to us with this kind of, let's say, clauses written in this way. So there are a few things wrong with this. For the first look, it looks great. You develop a product, you send it to the client for acceptance, and then the clients accept the product, so you issue an invoice. Now, practical problems. First of all, there is no criteria for acceptance of the product. The product is sent, the product is developed, but the client, since there are no criteria, may as well say, no, we don't like it. We want you to change this and that. Even if you somehow work out the criteria over emails, what if the client simply does not respond, like with the restaurant situation? You may, in accordance with this clause, issue your invoice only if the product is accepted. So they may prolong this technically for a very, very long time. And the third issue is the invoicing guidelines. And you have to be very careful about that when you're negotiating with enterprise customers. Many corporations have their specific guidelines regarding how their invoices are supposed to be prepared. By their invoices, I mean your invoices that you send to them. And then they outsource their accounting process, and they tell the consultants in the outsourcing center that they are absolutely forbidden from admitting an invoice that is not in accordance with the guidelines. And I have seen situations when what's missing the guidelines or inability to meet the requirements that are in the guidelines delayed the payment of a client for a few months. So now to the fix. All right. So the first thing I did is I have introduced acceptance criteria, which should be attached as a schedule. Acceptance criteria can also be made in a project plan you make for the game. The bottom line is you have to be very clear about what these criteria are and how you can meet them. If, as the game development process is quite hectic and features come and go, if you envision that the acceptance criteria you start with may not be good, or they will not going to fit the purpose at the end of your development process, then you introduce a mechanism on changing or designed to change the development or the acceptance criteria. For example, that project manager from the client side and project manager from the developer side are going to meet and discuss, and based on change of features, they are also going to change the acceptance criteria. The other thing I did is that I have added a link to the client's or publisher's invoicing guidelines. It's better to have this via link, because if you attach it to a contract as a PDF, the invoicing criteria may change a few times over the course of the contract. And then if you don't have the link here, you're going to miss it. And the publisher is not going to send them to you. They will probably miss it. And the third thing I did is that I introduced a provision saying that if the client does not respond, or if the publisher does not respond within 14 days from you submitting the game, or let's say a bunch of assets, they are automatically deemed accepted. I know this sounds harsh, but this is the industry standard practice. No one is supposed to have a problem with this. It may be so that 14 days may not be enough for the publisher if the game is large, but you can just change these 14 days to 30 then. But having the fixed timeline for acceptance of specific milestones and the entire product is crucial. I'm going to take a second now to see whether there are any questions so far. No, all right. So moving on. Warranties. Okay, so this one may be probably the most problematic clause, and it's very difficult to discuss it without talking about any specific jurisdiction. But it's so important that better let's say at least paint you the general picture. Warranty is your way of saying that the product is going to work, and that if it's not working, you're going to fix it. If you can't fix it, you're going to pay up. And this is exactly what this contract says. You warrant that the product, for example, a port of a game, is going to be fit for purpose. Fit for purpose means it's going to work. And by work, I'm not saying it's going to be playable. I'm saying it's going to have no bugs. And as we all know, well, this is impossible. So if you agree for such a warranty, you are in breach of contract day one. You know that this is something you're never going to be able to deliver. And well, yeah, there is no easy fix for this one, but I'm going to show you how this clause should be written to make sure that you are not going to go bankrupt because of commitments that you weren't supposed to, it was not possible for you to meet. And the first point of the clause, as you see, is a warranty, but not for fitness of purpose, for purpose or merchantability or anything general. It's just that your product is going to comply with your documentation. And this documentation, it should be also defined and attached either as a schedule or defined as let's say, a project file in which you and the publisher or the client describe the features of your product. And this is the only thing you warrant, and you work really hard on the project plan or project description or project documentation to make sure that things that are described there are things that you can perform. Or and also that there are mechanisms in this project plan for changing the documentation if you add a feature or if you remove a feature. So when you are submitting your product, you end up with a, let's say, well, you end up with project documentation that is, let's say, it conforms with the product. It is one and the same. The other part of the clause is that is a disclaimer. So the general idea is you warrant what's in the documentation and you disclaim the hell out of everything else that you can think of. And most of legal systems, I'm not talking about any particular one here because it's not, well, there is no point since the audience is international, but most of legal systems would have some kind of implied warranties in case of, let's say, sale of software or let's say game development, provision of assets, and so on. In the States or in the UK, it would be that the product is merchantable and fit for purpose. In Poland, it's rękojmia. Most of legal systems have something like that. So you have to the maximum extent possible, you just have to disclaim it. By disclaim, I mean the clause designed as the one I'm showing you at point 2 is designed to disable this kind of warranties. And the last issue around this subject is the last sentence. And this is also very important. During the development process, you are going to discuss with the project manager from the client or publisher team. You're going to write emails describing features or potential features. You're going to say on Slack, someone from your team saying, "Yeah, don't worry, we got this." And well, all of these things, when it comes to a dispute, can be printed out and shown in court as an, let's say, an intent and as a description of the product that you have promised to deliver. If you don't expressly disclaim it, and if you don't say that all you warrant and all that product is going to do is in the documentation, everything else can apply. I'm going to take a little break just to check whether there are any more questions. Yeah, and there is. What if the contracting party is being unreasonable? Well, I would need to understand what do you mean by unreasonable. But general rule of thumb is that this is the contracting is not personal. So if you're calm and you're calmly asking for what you want, you have a huge chance to get it. If you could describe, let me know what exactly do you mean by the contracting party being unreasonable, I may be able to answer more thoroughly. So, oh, this is a funny one, and it looks great on paper, but may cause certain problems. In this clause, you simply agree that your publisher may come up, may come to your country and to your city and just audit your compliance with the agreement. And for most developers, it seems fine. I mean, let them come, let them see how we work. We will have a beer. It's going to be fun. So before you consider accepting this kind of audit clauses, ask one of your friends that is working in an outsourcing center about client audits and how they really look like. A person from the UK or from the US may come to your city for the entire week They will have a great time partying in the evenings, but during the day they're going to walk all over office and they're going to watch what you're doing. They will ask a lot of questions. They're going to slow everything down, and you will have to designate at least one person to babysit such an auditor. This is a person that cannot work. If you're on a tight schedule, well, that's a problem. So it's great if they come. It's great to talk to them, but you have to make sure that it's not too often, and that this is not going to generate any cost for you. So this is what I would do with such a clause. You make sure they can't come more than once a year for an audit. If there is a business discussion, they can come anyway. This is just for an audit. They have to give you a notice for the audit, so you can prepare, you can tell your employees what to say, how to behave. And last but not least, they are going to reimburse you for the costs and expenses that you bear because of such an audit. Once the costs and expenses clause is in the agreement, the publisher is going to think twice before they're going to audit you for a long time. I know that the publisher or the client are the party that has much more financial means, but large companies are very much into cost cutting. And the primary area in cost cutting is business travel. So while they know that they're going to pay for everything, well, the corporate may not agree for the trip in the first place. All right, so this is the last clause I was planning to talk about. And well, this one is not legal, it's not operational. It's, let's say, a boilerplate clause that's most of the time hidden somewhere at the bottom of the document with clauses that you are never going to negotiate. But it causes some difficulties in practice. What it says is that the publisher may set off any amounts that you owe the publisher against any amounts the publisher is supposed to pay you. So in practice, when you agreed a revenue share with the publisher, or when the funding is going to be paid in tranches, as it usually is, and at the same time, if you are in breach of the contract, for example, you haven't met the milestone, or you've breached confidentiality provisions of your agreement because one of the developers said something weird on the internet. Well, this may give rise to a penalty from a contract or liquidation damages in common law jurisdictions. And, well, the publisher may calculate this and set off the penalty against the revenue they're supposed to pay. So you're going to get paid less. There are two ways to deal with this clause. The first one is to simply delete it. But as straight out deleting the clause is not well seen anywhere in contract negotiation, you may just change it to say that neither party can deduce any obligation from the other, and that's it. I'm going to take a look at the questions. Yeah, I'm still interested about this unreasonable party, but I'm still not getting any reply on that. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is NDAs. this is not any specific clause, but it's about confidentiality agreements in general. This is what has been suggested by one of the reviewers of my presentation. So the main issue with the NDAs is that they are signed at the beginning of your cooperation. So if there is nothing terribly wrong with the NDA, you are expected to sign it and not to make any problems with it. Of course, it's fine to have one round of markup, but if it takes a few days to negotiate an NDA with you, this may actually trip the client or a publisher off. This is the beginning of your relationship. You sign it just so you can start talking. So if there is a problem with you on this stage, then there may be a larger problem with you later on. So, of course, read the NDA through, see whether you can comply with it. But if you don't see anything terribly wrong with it, just sign it. Claims from or lawsuits from NDAs are extremely rare because on this stage there is no money involved. So, well, the risk is lower, and people just don't sue for that. But nevertheless, you have to go through this, and here are, let's say, 4 key issues to consider while reviewing an NDA. The first issue is to never release the information before you execute an NDA. That's the first and the most important thing. And believe me, it happens more often than you would expect. Before the NDA is executed, it means before you have a copy of the NDA signed by a representative of the other party, not by you. Once you have this on your mailbox as a scan, you may release the information. It may depend on the jurisdictions. In some, you may need to have this on paper physically. In some, an electronic signature will suffice. But the bottom line is you don't release anything before the other party accepts that it's confidential. The other thing is to always make sure that there is an end date to your confidentiality obligations. If you sign up for an indefinite NDA, you technically need to keep this information confidential indefinitely. So after 20 years, someone can still have a claim towards you if it's going to be released, which doesn't make sense because the information is not relevant after a time anyway. So just insert the end date of the agreement, of the NDA. It can be 2 years, it can be 10 years. You have to select a date entitlement that's reasonable in your circumstances. But generally, I have never had a problem with anyone accepting 10 years as a limit. Third thing, make sure that you can actually comply with your confidentiality obligations, and in particular, with obligation to label your information. In many NDAs, the information you release is considered confidential only when it's labeled as confidential. So you have to put a watermark in. You have to add a certain phrase in the footnote of your email that this particular content is confidential. Before you accept an NDA that has the labeling requirement, make sure you can implement it. If you can't, make all information try to make the NDA all information you release automatically confidential. And the last thing is to remove all provisions that are not related to confidentiality. And this is connected with what I said at the beginning about NDAs, that this is just the start of the process, and this is just for you to start the conversation. So if you see that a publisher is trying to insert some clauses related to non-competition or beware rights to your information or rights to data you release to the publisher about your game, this is something that needs to be struck down. This is against, let's say, confidentiality agreements rule of thumb, and those publishers and clients are well aware that they are not supposed to put this kind of provisions in there. So if you see coming up an NDA that's clear, that's short, and that's only about confidentiality, you are probably expected to sign it right away so you can start the discussion. If you see an NDA that's 5 pages long and has information about data privacy, non-competition, copyright transfers, and so on, then the publisher is well aware that it is going to be negotiated, and then you may introduce some changes similarly to what you would do in, let's say, in a contract, or just trying to limit and delete everything that's not connected to confidentiality. All right, so that would be it for my presentation. I'm now going to shamelessly leave my phone number and my email address on the screen while I'm taking a last look whether there are any questions to the presentation. No, there are not. All right. So then I would like to thank you for your time. And if you happen to be in Warsaw, want to have a chat about contracting or, well, need help to start, just let me know or give me a call. Thank you.